Back out here in Petrolia, as I was taught a few weeks ago by our friend Larissa, the greater Petrolia area, the GPA, at the Victoria Playhouse in Petrolia. This time with our friend Callandra Dendias. It's so nice to see you again.
Same.
I've seen you online. You've probably seen me online, and
All the time.
but we haven't in person. I think actually I passed you in the hallway here a couple of weeks ago. But
I'm around.
but yeah. You're busy.
Yeah.
You're busy.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for giving me your time. It's nice to reconnect with you again.
Absolutely.
What's your title here?
I'm the program coordinator for the Victoria Playhouse.
Okay, so what does that mean?
I asked myself.
Right.
You know, it's kind of just working really closely with David and David, who are co-artistic directors here. It can be anything from helping facilitate the audition season to getting rights for shows, working closely with Larissa with grant applications, just kind of the day-to-day. And yeah, some of the stuff is like designing chocolate bar labels for sale. So I mean, it really runs the gamut of all kinds of stuff, but yeah.
It's kind of like, we need this done, go to Callandra.
Yep.
Yeah. But you love it.
Absolutely.
How long have you been here?
So my role as program coordinator has kind of changed over the course of time. I started doing just marketing for the theater, but I've been doing all of that kind of stuff since 2013.
Wow.
I did my first show here the year before, Country Sunshine with the Davids, their first season.
That was in 2012, was your first show?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow. What was your first, I asked Larissa this question and she was a sheep.
Okay.
But what was your first stage performance, even as a little child, or what? Do you remember what it was?
I don't know what the first one I attended would have been, but the one that got me into theater, my parents were big on going to see the shows in Toronto, and they'd always buy like the cassette soundtracks.
Oh, yeah.
So the Les Mis soundtrack, just on repeat. And I remember being like 5 or 6 years old, and my mom would explain to me like what's happening and stuff, and now like as an adult she's been like, well, I really had to kind of tailor some of those things because like the French Revolution and you know,
to a 5-year-old,
the sex workers and all of that like singing Lovely Ladies, and I'm just in the back singing along. But yeah, so that's, I think I kind of latched onto that because there was a young girl in that show, so I kind of like in some way was thinking, oh, like people like me could be on the stage doing that, and from there it kind of just grew into all the musicals.
So your first time on stage was in 2012 or before that?
Oh gosh, no. I grew up kind of like a dance studio kid.
Okay.
I could always sing, but that wasn't like where I got my training. I was just more of a natural singer, and I trained dance. I was really into tap dancing.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would be in, you know, school shows and stuff, but really doing more of like the competitive dance thing. And then I grew up in London, so they have the high school project there, which is like their collab with the Grand Theatre.
Right.
So I did Hello Dolly there, and then from that I got an audition. So I did my first professional show when I was 17 for the Grand.
Wow.
And then I went to Sheridan for theater performance. And
amazing.
Yeah.
So like, were you born with this then, would you say?
I think I was born being able to sing.
Right.
For sure. But the dancing and like the stage presence and all of those other things definitely is.
Are you the triple threat? Or do you dance, act, sing?
Well, I haven't had to really dance for a long time. But yes, I would say if I had asked my peers, they would say I was. Yeah.
And so that's a lot of training. Like, I mean, a lot of people, you know, they send their kids to hockey school, soccer school, golf school, all that. But this is kind of a different animal, isn't it? You know, as far as the training and the upbringing to being like, you're a professional.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a lot of work and a lot of commitment, not just from you, but from mom and dad.
Oh gosh, yeah. Now as a mom myself, I think of my mom, like how many hours she spent just driving to the dance studio and back, and competitions and shows and all that. But I've had that conversation with her now, and she's like, I'm just really glad that it turned into something. Not to say that anybody has to turn it into a career necessarily, any kind of training.
I get it. Like,
you know,
we're doing all this for what?
Yeah. So it never felt I think like it's more looking back to really recognize what a sacrifice all of that would have been for my parents, because for me it was just what I wanted to do.
Right.
So it never felt like, oh, I gotta go to dance or I got this show or whatever. It's just what I wanted to be doing.
So let me ask you this, philosophically, I'm the guy that believes in there's no plan B, it's just plan A.
Yeah.
Plan A all the way. Sure, you got to do other stuff along the way, but would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think as you kind of grow up, you realize that your plan A can still exist with other things happening. Mm-hmm. I think my plan A was always to also be a mom, for example.
Okay. And
I think for some people, their plan A doesn't include that sort of thing because there's a huge sacrifice. There has to be the balance of it all, right? So that's kind of been the beautiful thing about my role here, in that I'm still immersed in the industry, and I've certainly learned so much more about the theater business, right. And the people I've met along the way, and the artists I've got to work alongside in all the different capacities. I've never felt like there was a sacrifice necessarily in that way, because I've still been part of something I really am passionate about.
Yeah, fair enough. And the reason I ask that question is because I wonder, Callandra, there's got to be so many people out there that want to be, a singer, dancer, rock star, whatever that is called professionally, and they're not pursuing it because, well, life happens, and I had 2 kids, and I got married, and I got to pay the bills,
Truly.
But then that mindset shifts, doesn't it? Like to like, I got to pay the bills, and then that plan A kind of falls off to the side, and then it's like, now it's just something I do on the weekends for fun. Yeah.
I think, everyone's circumstances are obviously different. I think you have to look at, as you create your life as an adult, what does that look like? What's your family unit like? Do I think if I had not become a mom and I'd gone off on my own, that I would be doing this? Probably not at least on its own. I mean, it's a component of the whole equation of what works for us now, for sure.
I find it interesting how in there you said part of my plan A was to be a mom.
Right.
Like that was part of it.
Yeah.
Right? And where I think a lot of people go, I want to do that thing, but I'm going to get married and I'm naturally going to have kids. But that's, there was did you write it down?
I don't know if I wrote it down. I've always kind of had that mindset of stubbornness, of not wanting to feel like I've sacrificed something for something else.
Right.
And I guess, you figure out, like, it's not always going to look the way you thought it might look.
Sure.
However, you figure it out, and
well, there's a roadmap if you're going down the road, and you're going to hit construction and obstacles, and you just kind of find a different route to get there, right? But you keep going to the destination. Yeah. Where does this goal-oriented mindset come from? Is that from mom and dad?
Definitely as a part of it, yeah. Both really instilled that in me and my brother growing up, I would say. But I think a lot of it is me too. Like, I was always that kid who felt guilty missing a day of grade 3, like just ridiculous, right?
Wow. Like, most of us were looking for a way to get out of it.
Yeah. I don't know why I was like that, but
you're weird.
I don't like calling out of show, like when I did Mamma Mia in Toronto, when it was like in the Mamma Mia heyday, and I didn't take a vacation day. I never called out sick. I was just like, this is the moment. Like, I don't want to miss a second of it. And I think that, it's just part of who I am. So
well, it shows to your level of professionalism too, right?
Sure.
It's like anybody could make an excuse to say, I need a vacation day, or I needed this or that, but you're just like there. It's like the job has to be done.
Yeah.
And you're loving it.
That's it. And like, every show comes to an end. Even the long runs, which are few and far between, especially as a Canadian artist, right? So, I think we can all, as performers, relate to that idea of just like, you want to soak it in, because you might be waiting tables, or you don't know what you're going to do next, right? Yeah.
What did you just said something there I found interesting. You said, especially as a Canadian artist.
Yeah.
What are you comparing that to, an American artist?
Yeah,
or European, for example?
Yeah, I think like when I was growing up and my parents would go see Mervis shows, there were so many incredible Canadian companies that were the sit-down company. They went across Canada to find the best of the best within our country. They are starting to do it again a little bit more. I think kind of like the SARS era, which was a little bit before my time in Mamma Mia. Mamma Mia ran for 5 years in Toronto initially, and I was in it for the last 9 months of that. Wow. So SARS had already happened, and the theater community in Toronto just didn't look the same after SARS. We didn't have the same tourism coming to Toronto, et cetera. So when the industry started picking up again and you'd get these big mega musicals, a lot of times it would just be a stop on the North American tour. And to get a part in those, you're generally going to the US to audition. And as a Canadian, whether or not it's true, I'll never truly know. However, something I was really told after Mamma Mia ended, because I had so many people say to me, oh, we really want to try to get you into another production. But if there's an American who can do the role, which with all the love in my heart, there's thousands of Americans who can do the roles in Mamma Mia. They're gonna give those, the Las Vegas production of Mamma Mia, they'll give it to an American. So it's just that idea of as a Canadian, it's just harder to get into that part, that niche of the industry.
Right.
I think, working for several decades now in Canadian theater, you see that you can be on Broadway and then you will be at the VPP and then you will be, in Chicago. It was so interesting. I know you and I were chatting briefly about Ben Vereen being here a few years back.
I'll never forget him. Yeah.
And the quote around here that he said that has stuck around forever is, Broadway's right here. And it's so true, because it's the talent, it's the team that's assembled, and it's all these people could be on Broadway, could go to Toronto. It's not a measure of talent. And I think that's really part of what makes this theater so successful, and the patrons just subscribe to everything we do, is because the caliber of the talent who come, right? Yeah. Yeah,
no, it's a good point, because I remember as a young child going to and you're not old enough to remember this, I'm sure, but the Polysar Glee Club and stuff like that. And I remember as a child going and watching that and thinking, wow, even as a child thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. This is at the old Skits Auditorium, and we have the Imperial Theater, and we have here and Huron County, right? And I've said to people, I said, you don't need to go to Toronto. Yeah. Nothing against Toronto.
No.
But you don't need to leave to go there, right? Yeah. We do have so much talent in this area I've often called it a hub for talent. Mm-hmm. But what you talked about in there is some of the frustrations that can come with being a performer as well. If you want to, sure, everybody wants to be the big actor on screen or whatever, but the reality side of it too, right?
Yeah.
And I guess maybe because of traveling, paperwork, all that stuff, that would have something to do with why they might take someone in the United States.
The work visa situation.
That, right? Or you're taking work away from our guys. And
there's some of that happening for sure, yeah.
So, is that on the map for you, though, too, is to do some American type stuff?
I have no idea.
Don't know that part of the plan.
Not because I wouldn't love to do it. I'm just at this spot, I don't know what the next 10 years of my career as a performer are going to look like. Yeah. I don't know what, this place has been my home for so long now.
It'd be hard to leave it, I would think.
Yeah. And kind of putting myself back out there as a performer to people who don't know who I am. Certainly my resume is vast from my time here, and I have done a couple other shows in the time I've been here at other theaters, but if you're not on the radar in this, as you say, hub of theater in Ontario, there are some of us who are relatively unknown at this point. I'm still very connected to all the people that I met throughout the years, but it would definitely be an interesting exercise at that, first audition back at it see.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and your mom, so you have 2 children?
Yeah.
How old are they?
My son's going to be 16 this summer, and my daughter just turned 14.
Wow.
Yeah. And we, I think my daughter had just turned 2 when I started here. So it's been really fun to have the patrons ask about them, and because they've seen them in the lobby.
I was going to say, have they been around here too?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They're part of the family here.
Yeah. We've had them incorporated in shows. We've not on stage, but I've talked about them. I've shown their pictures and stuff. So yeah.
Do they have the desire to perform, or did you push them on stage?
No, they don't. They're both very into soccer, which is interesting, as I am the least sporty person on the planet. So it's become a bit of a family joke that I've turned into a soccer mom, because now I'm like all riled up and passionate. And I said, if nothing else, I've learned like a few key soccer phrases, and I use my big singer projection voice, and I'm loud as can be. So yeah, my husband and I, we've co-coached my daughter's team for several years, so that's been fun. And my son is on a competitive team. He's very passionate about that.
Okay.
Yeah, so my daughter has been in school shows, and she's I tell everyone this story. She was in the chorus of Mary Poppins.
Okay.
And she talked about it, and I was so excited because I'd never really seen her on stage. So I was like, okay, like, will she be like me? And she's up there with an umbrella doing her choreography, and her face is just, and she's, and I was like, you did a great job, like, whatever. And she was like in grade 6, like this is silly, but and after she's like, oh, it was just so stupid. Okay, it's not your thing, I get it.
Is she laughing right now if she watches this? And you tell that story? She's going, Mom.
100%. She's 14 going on 20, so
right.
Yeah.
Were you like that? Were you a force to be reckoned with at a young teenage?
I don't think I had like the attitude.
Oh, okay.
I was like a rule follower. My mom actually, I think.
You were busy performing.
Yeah, my mom and I on Father's Day weekend, we were just sitting having a lunch, and we were talking. She's like, I don't remember why we were talking about this, but she's like, you never rebelled, you never acted out, you never had like a moment where I was like, what's going on with Callandra?
Right.
I was like, I was too busy. I was too busy dancing, and like it gives you something to like really focus your energy into. I think also like dance studio culture, especially competitive dance studio culture, as you're kind of getting up there in age, like you're setting an example. They're giving you that responsibility, and I think most dancers take that seriously. So I think that was just kind of part of.
Well, and at a young age too, and it's definitely teenage years, especially. I know Jennifer always says, "Oh, teenage girls way different than teenage boys."
Oh yes.
Emotions and body things, all that stuff is happening.
Yeah.
And we all want to belong to something. Yeah. Especially at that age. It's like, pick me for the team, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You were already in it. You were a part of it, of what you wanted or thought at that time what you wanted to do, right? So that was probably part of what kept you from not rebelling, was you were doing what you wanted?
Probably.
I'm already doing what I want.
Yeah.
What's there to rebel about?
Yeah.
Did you appreciate what you had growing up?
Definitely.
Yeah. So your mom and dad, what did your mom do?
Teacher.
Oh wow, what did she teach?
Elementary.
Oh wow.
She did a lot of like.
She's a superhuman.
Truly, she is. Did a lot of special ed, resource work, working with kids who needed the extra help, and now in her retirement years, she is a tutor. So
still
doing that. Yeah.
What about Dad?
Dad worked in the automotive industry in kind of human resources, that kind of land. So unions and all of that sort of thing.
Oh, okay. And your husband, we talked about him before we started the camera.
Yeah.
Share what he does.
He does like. He does marketing. He curates music for retail spaces.
Yep.
But he's worked for the same company for years, but it's kind of had different iterations where he's done scent marketing for retail spaces. He's done custom fun signage and stuff for spaces. It's given him. It's his company is very heavily incorporated into Canadian music, They're a big sponsor, for example, the Junos and other festivals and stuff. So he's passionate about music himself.
So we've probably seen and heard his work.
Yes, definitely. You go into any store and you're basically hearing something that he's had. Yeah, and he has a personal music taste that I would say is very not mainstream.
Oh.
He loves to find Canadian artists who most people don't know, or he'll be like, oh, Callandra, remember that song in 1972? That blah, blah. And I was like, we weren't born. You don't remember that song. Like, I know you know the song, but no, you weren't there. Yeah.
Sounds like a fun guy.
Well, yes, yeah, he loves what he does, and he's the life of the party. I'll say that.
You're a good pair. You both love what you do. And how did you meet?
High school. We were not friends in high school.
Oh yeah.
I was, as you know now, I was like student council, theater nerd, and he was skipping classes. He was
not a cool kid.
Oh, he was cool. I think I was the uncool kid in the mix. He is like a skateboardy, skip class, and
all right.
Yeah.
So opposites attracted there, or what happened?
Well, we kind of reconnected through mutual friends down the line.
Right.
Yeah.
Out of high school.
Out of high school. He did sign my grade 9 yearbook in German. I remember him doing it and being like, this guy's weird. Why is he? He was taking German in grade 9 instead of French, so that's why he did that. But yeah.
And then you got connected and just
the
rest. And when you decided to get married, we talked earlier about the plan A. Was that a part of the conversation? Was that for your side of things, was that Callandra is going to do this?
Yeah, I was pretty clear that I was going to work in theater. He was more of the wild card. We didn't know, like, he was the kind of guy who had a bunch of jobs as we were dating and engaged. When we got engaged the week before, I jumped on a Disney cruise ship to perform.
Of course.
To save money for our first house together. So, he settled into his career during our engagement, and then it's grown since then. Whereas I was always clear that I wanted to work in theater. I think I was a little naive, being like, I'm going to be a performer, and I might have to go here and there.
Right.
Okay.
It could.
Sure, to an extent, and yes, I could. That's the thing. Like, you can always pursue more. You can try to throw yourself into more auditions. There is a great, film and television industry in Canada, but that was just never what I wanted to do. So. Yeah.
But you're here, like in Petrolia, and I know some might go, oh well, it's Petrolia. But seriously. The Victoria Playhouse is on the map when it comes to theater, outstandingly. Yeah. And you are getting paid to do what you love to do. Sometimes you're performing too, and you're around it. Like, could you really think of being anywhere else? Like, sure, you could. I'd love to do a Broadway show or whatever. But that's a once in a lifetime. That might not be at this point a regular, right?
Right. No, this place is very special. I don't think another theater on the planet, yes, I will be that bold to say this, has connected with their patrons the way we have.
Yeah.
And that is almost the caliber of the performance itself is secondary to the relationship that everyone from the box office to the Davids to Larissa have built with the patron base. It's just really, really unique, and it really feels like it's a little bit magical. Honestly, to have that relationship where, we all have our patrons who have, kind of latched on to different performers and kind of become adopted grandparents or whatever it feels like. And it's just, I don't think you would get that. You couldn't get that in some other cities and towns, right? So
it's not all business here.
No.
Yeah, and you talked about how the patrons ask you about how's the kids or whatever, but you probably ask them oh, and how's your grandchild and how's your all that, right? So it's an extended family. So you have your family at home, you've got your family here, and then you've got kind of another extended family from the patrons.
Yeah,
right?
It was interesting during COVID. We decided to just get some of the most familiar performers to the patrons to just call them. We had nothing to offer. We had no. This was at the bulk of there's no plans to reopen anything. So we just cold called patrons to say, how are you doing? And these calls would last anywhere from like idea. 2 minutes
to 2 hours.
Yeah. And we heard some of the saddest stories you could hear and some of the most beautiful celebrations they wanted to talk about. And it, like, you just go like, this isn't about theater right now. This isn't about making money. This is something that is just on a different level.
Yeah, what a great idea. And so you were involved in those calls, and probably, I'm sure you had a team did that. So what was that experience like? It
just brought you back to what was important, because I think, you know, as a theater, you're going, oh my gosh, are we going to get shut down? Like, when we reopen, what will that even look like? We kept saying, like, at the time, we were going to just pause our season and then present all the shows we planned to present. And we kind of got like this, like, we were parrots just saying the same thing over and over again. And then the idea came from David Hogan, and it was just a beautiful, like, give your head a shake. Not he didn't say that, but, you know, for all of us, we went, oh, right, like, on the other end of all of these tickets that are just sitting, waiting for bums and seats, those are people who, some of them, you know, when we talk to them pre-pandemic, like, this is their social life. This is their special time with their girlfriends, or they bring their grandkids, or whatever the thing is, and that's been taken from them. And a lot of them live alone, and you know, they just wanted to hear a friendly voice, and it was just really, really nice. And then, of course, when we did reopen,
wow, it was a big celebration.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And a lot of thank yous, I'm sure. And
but a thank yous from us too, because as like reports were coming out as the world reopened, and you know, seeing the, you know, Toronto Star or wherever, like, as we sort of reopened, and then we didn't. And then we didn't. Just how theater industry struggled to reopen. Yeah. We, of course, had our own issues, but we didn't experience what the industry experienced, and that is completely because of the patrons. Like, we didn't have those people being like, give me my money back. No, when the time comes, the time comes. If it's those shows, great. If it's a different show, great. Like, it was just that trust of like, we're gonna take care of each other here. We're all just doing the best to get out on the other side of it, and it was beautiful. Makes you want to stay here even more, right? You know, and especially, you know, at that time, like, I always call it the longest 2 weeks ever, because we were only supposed to be closed for 2 weeks, right? And 2 years later and all that. But that was really at a time of unknown, like, am I even allowed to sit out on my front porch? Am I going to get a fine if I do, or whatever? Like, it was madness, really, is what it was. Personally, at home, what was that like? Okay. So I was the only person who could access the ticket system from my house. Okay. And that's because I do work remotely some days, so I had access to it. So I was like the box office on my couch while my kids were doing like remote learning. Right. And like over 6,000 calls, and bless everyone's heart, but like, when the message constantly was changing from the government of like half capacity, or no, we're not opening, or yes we can, and no we can, and the amount of calls, the confusion, and like, to take, you know, a sold out house and say your 2020 date was and now we're going to pick all these people up, plop them into a new date, and then contact them. I'll be like, does this date work for you? Right. Is everyone who was going to come still okay? Please say yes. Like, it's weird to think back on, honestly. Just how much work went into all of that. And not to say, like, I eventually, once people were kind of allowed in the building, but we weren't open, then we had our box office power behind us again. And you got through it. Exactly. With the right team. Yeah. Speaking of the team, talk about the Davids for just a moment. Sure. She's like, oh, what do you want to know? Where to start? There's my opportunity. But the Davids are famously known for their direction, their savviness, and pulling things together in a space. I think a lot of times watching from afar, when people say, you can't do that. Is that a fair description of the Davids? They're just like the perfect, they're nothing like each other. But they have the same goal. So it's kind of this beautiful dance to watch from like the inception of what if we did a 70s tribute to then, that time next year, having done the 70s tribute, going like, you hear a 70s tribute. It's never what you exactly think it's going to be in the best way, because
it's not just bell bottoms and disco.
Well, and that's it. Like, so many theaters do musical reviews, and they are always dangerously teetering on hokey if you're not careful with how you present certain themes, right? So they pull even with the humor, they pull such a classy finish to what they're doing. And Raj has such humor and like just creative nuance that you don't see coming, and then you watch what he's put on stage, it just works. And Hoagie, he just gets it done. He's got the list. He's the business guy, and he makes it happen. And it's very interesting to see just how their two personalities play off each other, play off the team, and ultimately just like put something amazing on stage.
And sometimes they might not agree.
Sure.
Sure, that's how we're saying it.
Well, I know,
that's
normal, right?
That's artistic differences, whatever you want to call it, right? But they walk away and then they come back and they go, okay, let's brush that off, and we still got to make this work.
Yeah.
What I find really interesting too about the Davids is you'll see them out in the street, directing the traffic and making sure everybody, after the show's over and before the show starts, like they're not bosses in the sense of go do that. They get right in there and this needs to be done. I think it was last week I saw David Hogan out there.
Yeah.
And it's again that hi David and hi Mrs. Smith and Mr.
Completely.
And
Hoagie particularly loves that time after a show where people, like, he's so open to any feedback. He doesn't care if your feedback isn't, that was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. He wants the feedback, and they both like sincerely take what people say into account as they plan the next season, or who they loved on stage or whatever it is. Like, they really want to hear that stuff. So it's again going back to that, like, just special little extra thing.
Yeah, right? and I think he said before, I love to see the reaction of people when they come out.
Yeah.
Because you can tell it's like an instant Google review by looking at their face and going, ooh.
Right, or like the Kleenex, or like or hearing, like, we've got Dear Jack, Dear Louise on stage right now. Right. So this whole story told through
that's a
love letters. It is, but it's so funny, and it's people come out with Kleenex. It's a perfect mix of kind of all the things you want from a play, and it's been something that our patrons are coming and telling Box Office and David and about their parents' love story of during the war, and how it resonates. Like, I've got a trunk of their old love letters at my house, and it's just really nice to.
It's a connection piece.
Yeah, or like when we do a tribute show to an artist or to a particular genre, and there's a song that sometimes it was the song that was played at someone's memorial or whatever the case is, and people just feel safe enough to take that time and share that little part of their own life story with you, and it's really nice.
What a great aspect to it all, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk. I want to talk about humor in theater.
Okay.
Especially, are you afraid? You were like, I don't know. She's acting.
Sure.
I'm not sure how I word this, so I'll just say it. Like, is offensiveness a concern? Like if you go back to like the Sammy Davis Jr. days, for example, there's a great example, with the Dean Martins and the Frank Sinatras, the Rat Pack, I guess, right? And race was a big part of humor.
Sure.
Archie Bunker, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that always a thought when this is scripted and put out, and is it thought even further because of where we live?
Yeah, it's definitely even sometimes what we think is safe, we learn.
Yeah,
we learn. One time we did a play called The Birds and the Bees.
Oh. And what's that about?
Right. Well, apparently some people didn't know what it might be about.
Oh, really?
So
that was my dad has to talk to you about the birds and the bees.
Right. Or we did Shirley Valentine, and she uses some strong language.
Oh.
And that, wasn't to the patron's taste. I think a lot is who our demographic is, where we are. Certainly there's plenty of shows out there that I think the humor, crude humor or whatever it is, works really well. It just depends. Like, I've seen Avenue Q, for example,
right.
And it is.
I remember seeing that.
It's like, wildly inappropriate, but
that was
so
like
funny.
right on.
Yeah. So I mean, but definitely when we're picking what we do, even so much as certain words we choose to change on stage in songs. I did a 70s show a couple years back, and the whole joke, Bad Leroy Brown. So the joke that we wrote into the script was about, like, it's okay to swear if it's in a song, because like, even just saying damn, like to some people they're like, I don't like that, but I think we've got to a point here at the VPP where we are very comfortable 99% of the time knowing what those boundaries look like.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's a thought that goes into it, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Are we too sensitive these days?
Sometimes I think so.
Yeah. Have we had enough? Are we getting to a point of, like, really, like, don't care, or I care but not really?
I think it depends on what we're talking about. I think, like, on the world stage right now, there's a lot of things that deserve that level of sensitivity, but big picture things, and sometimes, like, the small things, like if somebody says the S word on stage at the VPP, like, it is just not the end of the world.
Right.
We don't need to. I think a heightened sensitivity to important issues has somehow at times heightened sensitivity to everything, and it's just, I think you lose sight of the important things. To
are you a political gal in the sense of, like, you're observing what's going on?
I observe. I would never, until like the last couple presidencies, I wouldn't say I was terribly interested. Like, you know what you know, but I wouldn't so much as, like, watch. I think the pandemic did a lot for that for me, because you just had so much time, and at times it was wildly entertaining to see what would happen.
Right.
I have a good friend of mine who I went to high school and elementary school with, who is the political correspondent based in Washington for CBC.
Oh, wow.
So she is, seen it all, and she's really kind of opened my eyes in some ways when we message, and she's like, you think you know, but you don't, because there are certain things that are way worse than you realize just by clicking on the news, right? And I think we have to be vigilant right now and trying our best to know, but it's also exhausting, and I find, like, it takes a toll, like, on your mental health to just be like, really, this is the next thing. Like, I think it gets heavy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I feel like I was maybe perhaps naive before the pandemic, and the pandemic at the time felt like, oh my gosh, I'm living through this monumental moment, and then after that, I feel like there have been monumental things that kind of have gone back to back, and, like, can we not? Can we go back to just, like, you can disagree with a politician, but there used to be a respect that seems to have disappeared.
Right. Are you sitting there going, like, WTF?
Oh, yeah.
Most of the time? Yeah. So that's why I don't watch CNN.
Yeah.
CNN, constantly negative news.
Yeah, okay,
right?
yeah.
You mentioned and this comes up every show that I do, and has for years, Callandra. Mental health.
Yeah.
Right, like, it's so, okay, those are two words that we used to be afraid to say out loud. Mm-hmm. Now we've gotten to the point of, okay, we're not afraid to say them out loud.
Right.
But the definition of it is often misunderstood, or is there, there's still that stigma. I always say stop the stigma. Is there still a stigma attached to mental health?
I think there is a stigma, but I also think like there's a heightened awareness of just identifying your own challenges that perhaps don't necessarily need like a name slapped on them or a diagnosis slapped on, but to just be able to identify things in yourself that do feel heavier or are harder to snap out of, or whatever the case is. I think at times, again, it's become a bit of a catchphrasey thing for people to fall back on.
Take advantage of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like I don't love when people are just like, oh, my mental health, and that they're making a joke of it themselves because you don't know the room, right? And it's kind of like you're allowed to be stressed. You're allowed to
use it as an excuse.
Yeah.
To not.
But I do think that I see, like in my kids even and in their friends, like the world just it just weighs on people. I think, I don't know, I would guess that, you know, the internet and social media and all of that really plays a part, because you have to make an effort to escape it now. Otherwise it's just there. Like if I open my phone, it's going to be.
Well, would you agree though, as the social media guy, that it's how we use it? Like if you go to David Burrows' Facebook, there's no negative.
Right.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Because if I scroll past this or this and it's negative and it's news, the algorithm knows, and it starts showing me that stuff. The same way who I hang out with.
Yeah.
You and I are hanging out, and we've got some other friends. We've all got similar interests, and we all have a positive mindset. We're only going to go to places. We're only going to travel. We're only going to talk about all that good stuff, right? Sure. But as having teenagers, you've seen the effects on their mental health because of social media?
Not even directly with my kids, but I just think that it's that balance of like using social media for fun, using social media to know what's going on in the world. Like, we're obviously all guilty of wanting to know what's going on with a war or with our friends, you know,
it's
in
Jerry
the U.S.
Springer in us.
Yeah, it is though. But then it's like, you know, you can have a chuckle when you're watching the latest goofy thing that a particular politician has said publicly. However, you know, then you go down the rabbit hole of, right? You go down the rabbit hole of like, but this guy's powerful and he's scary when you actually take the stupid quotes away from it, right? And that's when you're like, for me, I would sit there and think about that, and I don't like that feeling of like, oh my gosh, like this isn't good. And I mean, this year has been interesting too in that Canada suddenly felt involved. We weren't spectators in the same way of like, look what's happening now.
That's interesting.
Right? And now I'm like, oh no, this is now impacting me.
Yeah.
My family, like my country. I always loved being Canadian. I never wanted to be anything else. But I think it was this year that I really understood like that patriotic pride of like, thank goodness I'm Canadian. Like, don't mess with us.
Yeah, right,
you know?
right. Yeah. And you know, we've always been, I don't know how to explain, we're Canadians.
Exactly, that's the explanation.
Like when I went over to Europe, twice I've been to Europe now, and originally they thought I was from somewhere else. Yep. As soon as they found out I was Canadian, there was like, roll out the red carpet, right? I started wearing Canadian pins wherever I went. Yeah. That's a prideful thing for Canadians. And we're not ones to typically wave the flag, and we are Canadians, but now that we're, I guess it's the elbows up thing, or whatever you want to call it, right? Yeah. Do you have these discussions about what's going on with the kids? I mean, obviously with your husband, but do the kids get involved in that?
Yeah, they are. And I will say, like, they come home, they talk about it at school.
Yeah.
But I mean, they are of that age where their teachers can talk about it, and it's never like talked about from a good, bad, or you know, like you're not feeling like the teacher's pushing any boundaries.
Yeah, right. It's respectful.
Yeah, but they're aware of what's going on in the world, and I like that, because then it opens it up. Because I don't love feeling like, oh, mom and dad are dumping like what's going on in Ukraine out of nowhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it's an important conversation to have.
It's an informed conversation.
Yeah. But it's how you bring it up, and they are still kids. You don't want them lying in bed at night fixating on
what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's good though, isn't it, that you have, like, I don't remember having those conversations when I'm an 80s teenager.
Yeah.
And it wasn't any, it was just, I was being a teenager.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Nor did I want to care.
Right.
Right. And we always say, like, when you go to the bar or wherever, you don't talk about politics and religion, but shouldn't we?
Yeah, it's interesting. My husband is so, like, does not care. He will bring it up on purpose. He loves that. Right. Whereas I cannot. So, I don't know.
He's opinionated?
Very.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And he doesn't back down. Like, he will happily, if anything else, he wants somebody to have the opposite opinion.
I can't wait to meet him.
But yeah, like, we went to Mexico earlier this year, and he got chatting with a couple, and I forget how it came up, but it was like, oh, we're from Canada. And the wife was like, oh, well, what do you think of blah, blah, blah? And he said what he thought. And she's like, don't let my husband hear that. Right. He thought Canada should be the 51st state. So my husband was like, right on it. And then there's me. And
the Mexican fellow thought it should be 51st. Yeah, okay.
So then I put my headphones in. They're still talking.
I'll be over here.
Literally, eventually I was like, it's time for a pina colada. Goodbye. Yeah, like, I just, we're on vacation. But yeah, I mean, there are some people they just love that. It's okay. Some people love that kind of a conversation. I am not that kind of person.
Yeah. So does he inform you, or do you pay attention to what's going on? Like, do you make
Both.
an effort to watch, or?
Yeah.
To a point.
Yeah. But he also works from home, so he'll have the news on, or
he's around.
Yeah. Whereas, if I'm working, I'm not constantly in the know. However, I will say, David Hogan and I in our office, we stay on top of things. If we know there's something coming out or whatever, we'll put the news just so we can watch a press conference or whatever the thing is. Yeah.
Did you watch? I imagine there was. Knowing you and some of the people here, were you all gathered around watching the King come to Canada? Were you guys watch? Did you pay attention to that?
No.
Did you have it on the big screen?
Not specifically. Well, when the King came to Canada, our team here at the VPP were working on different shows all simultaneously, so we weren't actually all physically in the same spot. Yeah.
Because that was a big deal.
Oh yeah.
For my grandmother, who was 94 when she passed away, that would have been a big deal.
Yeah.
The Queen and all that.
When I went to college, the Queen came to our college, and that was a huge deal.
Wow.
I had a disposable camera. Got the film developed.
Camera.
Yeah, got the film developed. This was like blurry Queen photos.
Paid more
terrible.
to develop it than you did for the camera.
Yeah.
Was that important to you that the King came to Canada? And was that it, or were you just like, oh yeah, that's nice?
I was more like, yeah, that's nice. So my mom's side of the family is from England.
Oh, okay.
So my mom grew up in England, and it was a big deal when the Queen came when I was in college. That was a big deal.
Sure.
I wouldn't call myself a fan of the King as a person, so I less invested in him simply because of who he is. But we were my mom was the get up in the middle of the night to watch Princess Diana get married that. I mean, everyone
Lady
did.
Di.
Yeah. So definitely the British culture growing up was my mom. Again, they just got back. Actually, went on a cruise, and they ended it in England to visit some family. My mom and dad went to the Coronation Street tour. So there's all these pictures of them in the different sets of Coronation Street. So yes, that's
interesting. Callandra, what haven't you done yet that? And this is my cliche question. I'm always going to ask the bucket list question.
Oh goodness. What?
Do you have one?
A bucket list? Well, I have a bucket list thing as a performer.
Okay.
Since the dawn of time is to play Eponine in Les Mis.
Oh wow.
That's my bucket list.
Okay.
I don't know. I think just bucket list is to perform until. I'm so inspired by the people who come. We've had Michael Learned, we've had Karen Grassley, Ben Vereen, like these performers who are in their 80s plus, who are still doing it. They're still memorizing pages and pages of scripts and music, and I just think that's so inspiring. So I think the bucket list is to just not stop.
Yeah.
You know?
Good one. I like that. I haven't heard that before. Just keep going. And you talk about Ben Vereen and Michael Learned. I will never forget sitting right about here and interviewing them, both separately, of course. What a joy for the VPP to be able to bring, like, how much time do we have?
Right, truly, right? It's ridiculous.
And then, like, Ben Vereen, when the interview was over, he wasn't in a hurry to leave. In fact, Hoagie had to come out and say, I need you.
Yeah.
He was like, so David, tell me more about you. And but he was a genuinely interested soul.
Yeah.
And I do remember some of the other performers saying, like, you know, sometimes you think these big stars come in and they're like, okay, so this is how this goes. He was like, tell me what you think.
No, I agree. I would almost say that the biggest stars who've had these like Tonys and Golden Globes are the most humble.
Right.
They are just the town of Petrolia, kind of across the board, the feedback from all of them has been like, this is the nicest place I could possibly be being paid to perform.
Right. Michael Learned was the same. Yeah.
It's so quaint and friendly, and it feels like a vacation for them to just be able to stroll down the street with a coffee in their hand, and there's no agenda other than I need to be at my sound check, you know?
Yeah.
We've been just so fortunate to have those people, and they've been so open and willing to go above just the basics of what they were like.
It was more than just a paid gig.
Ben Vereen called, I wasn't there for this, but Sheeta Rivera, he called her before the show with the whole cast of the VPP show on stage just because he could, and he thought it would be cool, and it was cool, and everybody just lost their minds. Like,
I know, right?
It's just so neat to.
He's such an amazing performer too, and from the good to the bad. I hated him for a while because he was the dad on Fresh Prince.
Well, we don't. Like, I know.
How could you do that to?
Nobody's forgiven him for that.
And I remember and I remember asking him about. I said, "You sang a song with Kermit the Frog." Right. Oh, he said. He just like his face is just so from his terrible accident that he had to. And Michael Learned, like, she was so fun. She did not want to do the interview.
Okay.
She told me after. So I hate doing interviews.
Yeah.
And David, she was very complimentary to me. And I'm thinking, this person doesn't have to give me any compliments other than, thank you for your time, you know, it's expedited, I got to get back to it, got to go. She sat there again with her dog after, and just what a privilege to be able to bring that here to the GPA.
Right,
I love
to
that
the GPA.
one. I'm never going to forget that one.
No, I love it.
You must really feel privileged to be, like, do you ever sit back and look at your position here and go, wow, like, this is, like, what are your thoughts when you look at it?
Yeah, it is. The VPP has been a gift in my life, from the patrons to being on stage, to just working alongside two geniuses, right? It's given me more than I think I would have ever imagined. I remember getting the call from my agent for the audition for the VPP. And I was like, there's a country singing show, and I sing a lot of country music. So go audition for this. And I went to that audition, and I called my mom from the parking lot, and I said, like, that was the best audition. Not because of what I did, but because Hogan, he coaches you in an audition, so he spends way more time with you than you would ever get.
Oh, yeah. It's not just, okay, show me what you got.
Not even kind of. He's like, imagine there's a camera in your face, and do it like you were on camera, and try it this way, try it that way. So I was just like, they're invested in what they're doing. Like, it's not just next. So I said, even if I didn't get that job, I got something out of that audition.
Right.
And
a learning experience.
Yeah. But who would have thought that, this many years later, I would have so many things to say about this.
Well, they obviously like you if they're keeping you around. You like them because you're sticking around,
exactly.
right? So, it's been fun to watch. I know, like, we haven't, say connected in person in a while, so I'm so grateful that we were able to. But I do watch from afar. Right. I don't know if that's creepy or whatever.
No, well, what are we talking?
It's like
lurking in the window. No.
Yeah. So it's been a joy to see you and like Larissa and the rest of the team too, see it grow.
Yeah.
Because there were hard times out here at the VPP when the fire occurred.
Yeah.
Do we rebuild? Shall we rebuild? Okay, what do we like all that coming together?
Yeah.
And I see people peering around the corner, so you must be you're demand, girl.
Oh well, who knows what butter tart crisis awaits.
Right? I love it. I'm so grateful. I know we're going to probably talk some more here, but we got to wrap things up. So thank you once again for your time.
Of course.
And wasn't that fun? I knew it would be. I was excited to get up. I said to my wife this morning, I said, I'm going to see Callandra. And she's like, who's that? Right. Who's that girl? Right? So she appreciates good theater too. So we're going to have to get some tickets to come out and see a show. There's an ABBA show coming up in September.
Yes.
And my wife is a huge fan, so
I'll be on stage.
Are you in that one?
I am.
Makes sense. Awesome. You can get your tickets to, what's the website? The VPP.ca.
The VPP.ca, yeah.
Right? We'll put that in the comments. But you know what I'm going to say? Click the love button and click the share button. It's the most important button, so we can share Callandra's story and everybody else I have here on the show. But yes, as always, that's all the time I got for you this week. Have a great week and an even better weekend. We'll see you next time right here on the show. Bye-bye for now. Can you give us a singing bye-bye?
Bye.